So I got asked what my first few years of game audio were like. And it all started when I was at the Berklee College of Music in Boston, Massachusetts, where I initially went to be a rock star. I had super long hair, I played prog drums in a bunch of metal bands. That was my main focus. And after doing that for a while and playing in bands and playing in groups and eventually actually getting to play with Nobuo Uematsu himself, the composer of Final Fantasy, on stage, I eventually decided that, you know what, I want to be more like Nobuo. I want to make stuff for games and not just play other people's music. So I stopped being a performer and started teaching myself as much as I could how to do music and sound for games. Now, at the time, I didn't even know what sound design really was. I didn't know how to compose because I was a drummer. I didn't really know how any of music worked. So I started to teach myself as much as I could and ask professors for help as well. But one of the most important things I did was talk to as many people as I could about this. And what I would do is go to what was known as the Boston Postmortem Group, which was the independent game kind of development group in Boston, and would go there as often as I humanly could while still being a student. And this was terrifying to me. I sucked at talking to people, had huge social anxiety, didn't really know anybody there, and I had nothing to my name. I'd never done anything cool, and all these developers were super successful. This is when Rock Band and Guitar Hero were like at the absolute peak, and Harmonix was killing it. So Boston was a pretty cool dev scene at the time, and probably still is. I haven't been back in a while. So while I was going to these meetups and kind of clamming up in the corner hoping someone would come talk to me, I would learn as much as I could about game development from other people of other disciplines, so people who didn't just do audio. And through doing this over and over and over, I learned how games worked, I learned how development worked as kind of a broad whole, and while at school, I learned how sound design worked, I learned how music composition worked, and I still have a lot more to learn, but I started to get a grasp on how to actually give people stuff when they wanted some sound or music for their game. So I started working on a bunch of student projects, mainly like student games and student animations, really simple stuff when I first started, all unpaid, by the way. And this gave me a lot of experience on how to actually give people music and sound, take feedback, react on that feedback, work with deadlines, etc., etc. And none of these projects were super cool or went anywhere, but they gave me a ton of experience, and I assume the other people involved the same thing as well. So as I kept doing that over and over and over again, just forcing myself to go to these meetups, I started to realize that my grades kind of started to decline, and I was cool with that. So it got to the point where I would either decide, okay, I have to do this assignment, or I have to go out and meet other people in the game industry. And I was pretty sold on working in the game industry at that point. So if an assignment was due, or I could just meet with people and talk to people in the game industry, it was always the assignment just got pushed off to the side. Now, I'm not recommending all of you do that, but that's how it eventually ended up working out for me, and it worked out totally fine. So my major focus after graduating was the same thing, was to talk to as many people as I could. And I eventually ended up working at the MIT Gambit Game Lab, which was the kind of game lab that Massachusetts Institute of Technology had that built games based off of research from PhDs. So we built a bunch of serious games in my summer there, so I worked there for about 3 months right after graduating. And then I moved to Seattle completely blind. I didn't know anybody here, and it worked out great because everyone else was going to LA and talking about working at EA or something. And I was like, I want to freelance, I want to go to Seattle. So came here, and it worked out great because I started to give a bunch of public talks on how game audio worked. While I was at Berklee, and actually the reason for these YouTube channels, I was upping my public speaking game as much as I humanly could because I knew that was an important skill. So when I came to Seattle, I gave some public talks, people started to kind of get to know me, and within a few months I was working on 2 games, one being Ironclad Tactics, and the other being City Quest. So Ironclad Tactics was a game made by Zachtronics, the people who made the game called Space Cam, if you know that. And the other one, City Quest, was this funny, crass iOS adventure game. So small things to start, actually. So not huge, gigantic Destiny-sized projects or Hyperlight Drifter-sized projects. But over the years, just doing that over and over and over and talking to people and delivering assets and doing things on time and getting good at delivering, I started to learn how to do better and better work. I didn't have a business card, by the way. I didn't have a demo reel. I didn't have a website. None of this stuff came till way, way, way later down the line. And honestly, it didn't matter because people just wanted to work with someone who they could get along with and someone who could deliver and someone they met in person and gave off a good vibe. So from a few years of doing that, nothing has changed, actually. So when I need new work or I'm just looking for work in general, I do the exact same thing. Nothing has changed. I go out, I meet people, and ideally, over time, I'll get a whole bunch of projects amassed and we'll work on them. Now, you probably won't get a project on your first meetup or anything like that. Don't expect to. But as you show up to these things consistently, and I have plenty of other videos on this, you can start to meet people, learn who they are, they'll start to like you, they'll start to trust you, and then from there, that's where a lot of work comes out. And this applies whether you're a freelancer or you want to work in a AAA company, because those connections that you'll gain, that network that you'll grow, will lead you kind of wherever you want it to. So when your network starts to get bigger and bigger too, then you'll start to be able to help other people. You'll start to be able to give other people work. You'll start to be able to teach other people what to do or guide them along the right path or introduce them to the right people. So it's a big, good karma helping situation for everybody. So for those of you who are students or just graduated or really at any point in your game industry career, don't forget that one of the most important things in my career, and I think basically everybody else's, is meeting people, learning to know them, getting them to trust you, and then working with them on whatever projects come your way. Hello everybody. If you like this video, please sign up for my newsletter. That's where I share all my best stuff for those of you who want to make a career regardless of what your discipline is, programming, art, audio, in the game industry. So for those of you who want an actual career that pays you and pays you well, sign up for my newsletter. That's where I share all of my best advice. Of course, also like the channel and subscribe. Thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next one.